All right, let's jump right in. We're going to be talking about this huge project in rural China that's taking on one of the world's biggest problems, but in a way you'd probably never expect. It's called the Taobao Village project, and honestly, it flips the whole idea of charity completely on its head. So, let me just ask you a huge question right off the bat. When you think about solving poverty on a global scale, what's the first thing that pops into your head? NGOs, big government aid programs, massive donations from billionaires. Just keep that thought on your mind for a second. Because what if I told you the most powerful, most sustainable solution isn't charity at all? What if the answer is actually profit? And that brings us right to our first point. See, to really get what the Taobao Villages are all about, you've got to understand that this isn't some side project for the e-commerce giant Alibaba. This is a for-profit, core part of their business. And this right here, this quote from Alibaba's founder, Jack Ma, is the key to the whole thing. The philosophy is super simple, but also kind of radical. If you want a solution to last, it can't depend on handouts. It has to pay for itself. It needs to be a real business that keeps going as long as the problem exists. That's how you get sustainability. So what is a Taobao Village? Well, it's a program Alibaba kicked off way back in 2009. Basically, they go into a rural village, set up all the internet and shipping infrastructure, teach the local people how to run online stores on their giant platform, Taobao, and boom, they're connected to a massive market to sell whatever local goods they have. But why did they do this? What was the actual problem they were trying to solve? Well, it wasn't about a lack of food. It was about a very specific, very modern kind of poverty, a total lack of cash. This slide breaks it down perfectly. The image a lot of us have of rural poverty is like starvation and empty, barren land. But in a lot of these Chinese villages, the land is actually super fertile. The real issue is they're kind of stuck growing just one low-value crop, maybe wheat or corn, because they're completely disconnected from any bigger markets. And this is the crucial point. People aren't starving. They have enough food on the table. What they don't have is cash. And in our world, no cash means no money for good schools for your kids, no money for a doctor when you get sick, not even enough for something as basic as a smartphone. They're basically produce rich, but cash poor. So how does the Taobao model tackle this? Well, Alibaba saw this cash problem and realized their platform could be the perfect bridge. Now, let's look at the numbers, because the scale of what they've built is pretty mind-blowing. As of right now, there are more than 5,400 Taobao villages spread all across China. That is an incredible number, and it just shows how far this business-first idea has spread. But okay, let's put that number in perspective for a second. China has over 500,000 villages, so 5,000 is still only about 1% of the total. A great start, for sure, but still just a drop in the bucket. But this is where it gets absolutely nuts. Out of that tiny 1%, 745 of them have become what they call billion-yuan villages. That means each of those villages is pulling in over 100 million yuan, that's more than 15 million US dollars, in sales every single year. This isn't just about escaping poverty. This is about creating some serious wealth. The numbers are impressive, yeah? But what does this actually look like for real people? Let's zoom in on one specific success story that really shows how this whole model can totally transform a community. Okay, so let me tell you about Zhejiang Village. Back in 2014, it was officially called a poverty village. 40% of the people there lived in poverty. But they had one unique thing going for them. Their area was a source of turquoise stones. Through this Taobao program, that one resource fueled an entire economy. Today, the village has over 500 online shops, employs 700 people, and in 2019 alone, they did over 200 million yuan in sales. And inside that village, you get these just incredible stories. Like this guy, Zhang Lijun. He was a quiet man, over 50, not a lot of formal education. He decides to give live streaming a shot. And he got so into it, he would practice talking to himself in a mirror every day. And people loved him. His genuine, kind of earnest personality and his local dialect just clicked with viewers. And he became this online celebrity, an influencer uncle. He's now selling turquoise to the whole country, and his expected income this year, over 1 million yuan. Unbelievable. Okay, so this model sounds amazing, but it is not a magic bullet. Because it's a for-profit system, it's also subject to the cold, hard realities of the free market. Success is absolutely not guaranteed, and some of the failures are a pretty big warning. Take this one village near Chengdu. It had a bunch of small sewing factories, so it became a Taobao village selling cheap clothes. And at first, it was a massive success. But that success brought in tons of outsiders, flooding the market. Suddenly, there were 700 factories, and with no new ideas, it just became a race to the bottom. Prices tanked, quality went out the window, and pretty soon, customers just left. The boom turned into a total bust, and now it's basically a forgotten Taobao village. So what's the lesson here? It's that the same market forces that can build fortunes can also destroy them. The profit motive gives you the drive, but it's not a safety net. If you don't constantly innovate and focus on quality, the whole system can just fall apart. So let's kind of wrap this all up. When you look at the big wins and the big failures of the Taobao villages, what's the ultimate takeaway? It really comes down to the unique and, well, powerful nature of a for-profit attack on social problems. And this slide just lays out the difference perfectly. On one hand, you have the charity model. It totally depends on donations. When the money dries up, the project just stops. And sometimes it can even lower the motivation for people to solve their own problems. But a for-profit social enterprise, it runs on its own revenue. There's a powerful built-in reason to get better, to innovate, because if you don't, you go out of business. It survives because it succeeds. And that's the bottom line, really. An approach like this isn't just a band-aid on the problem, because it's a real business. It's designed to exist for as long as it's needed and as long as it's profitable. It gives people the tools and the incentive to fix their own situation. It gets right to the root of the problem, which is a lack of economic opportunity. And that kind of leaves us with one final big question to think about. We've seen how this model works for rural poverty. But if a sustainable for-profit system can make this big of a dent in a problem this massive, what other huge global challenges are just waiting for a similar kind of solution?